Hi, I'm Sifu Kuttel, and in this video we're going to be working with the Taiji Saber. This technique that we're going to be focusing on in particular is a flowering technique that ends with a leg lift and an upward cut. This may seem complicated, and we're going to take our time and break down each component of this so you understand the actual techniques within the flower, how to open up and then move to the single leg lift, and how to get good balance during that. So grab your saber, get some space, and let's get to work. This technique can be broken down into three parts. The first part is being able to do the upward flower. Okay, so let's start with that. Now, we can even break that down into two single cuts. So I want you to think that your target is straight forward, and you're going to cut upward. And we're going to do this starting from our right side and our left side. So the main thing you want to keep in mind is keep your blade edge pointing forward at all points during these cuts and during the spin. Okay? So let's take our hand and we're going to cross our body. Think of like you put your sword in the sheath. And then from here, we're going to bring our hand up and across. So if I start at my left hip, I'm slicing up towards my right shoulder. Okay? My blade edge is pointing forward here. And then of course at the very end, the tip of the blade is going to point forward. Okay, nice and simple. So we cut up this way. Now let's cut to the other side. So if I'm starting on my right side, I have to turn my palm over so my blade edge is pointing forward, and then I'm going to cut from my right hip to my left shoulder. Now, try it again, just down, up and across. Now from here, I'm going to switch sides. So I'll just bring my hand back, cut up and across, bring my hand back, turn the palm, cut up and across. Bring my hand back, turn the palm, up and across, bring my hand back, turn the palm, up and across. Now we can tie these together so it becomes a spin, or we like to call a flower in Chinese martial arts. So after I finish the cut, instead of just dropping my hand down, I'm going to continue the motion, bring the sword behind me, and then cut to the other side. Continue the motion, bring the sword behind me, cut to the other side. So remember what I said in the beginning. We want to keep that blade edge pointing into the cut, not just forward, but wherever the sword is traveling, that's where the blade edge has to point. So when my sword is going behind me, the blade edge points behind me. When it's going to go forward, the blade edge points forward. Okay, so no sloppy half blade, flat blades. Okay, so we'll start across the body, bring it over towards that left hip. We're going to cut up, and then from here, bring your hand behind you. The blade edge should be pointing behind, then down, and then now forward into our cut. As we bring it across the body, blade edge points up as I bring it up, blade edge points behind me as I bring it back, and blade edge points forward as I finish with my cut. Again, down, let it really turn. I take a lot of space. I'm drawing a big circle with the sword, and it's only on the side of my body. So when you look forward, it's more next to me on either side. When you look at it from the side, you can really see this big circle. Now, after you're comfortable doing one cut, the next cut, you can pause here. Cut, pause, cut, pause, cut, pause, cut, pause. Once you're comfortable there, we want to tie it together and make it that continuous circling motion. This is our flower. Now, as we do this flower, we want to have our other hand do something. So don't just let your hand sit limp. This goes against your Tai Chi principles. You want to have equal energy in both hands. We need to have this hand have energy in it, and we're going to use it as a guarding hand in front of the chest. Now the distance you want is actually not just next to the chest, but a little bit forward. Think of when we do play the fiddle. It's right next to your elbow. This is that distance that you want. So while the hand is in front, when you're swinging the sword in front of the body, we want our hand at that elbow distance. Okay? It doesn't make contact. We're not going to be touching the wrist. In the beginning, you can. This may be a little bit helpful for getting used to this motion and getting your hand out. But the ideal is that you have your hand, good energy in the hand, and good positioning as you flower. Now, once you're comfortable with this, let's change up our stance. So we're going to start with a left bow stance. Whenever you change your stance, you have to remember that this kind of flower moves from side of the body to side of the body. So we don't want to step too far out to the sides because we might end up hitting our leg on accident. So start with a good third line, hips distance, and also just make sure that you're not, slow down. So you make sure that the path of the sword is not going to hit you in the leg while you do this. So we're going to do this with our left bow stance and then flower. This is a great way to get used to the warm-up, to get used to the sword, spatial awareness, and develop arm and wrist strength to be able to handle this, and also wrist flexibility and mobility. Now, every time we cross the sword to our left, we're going to count. And we're going to do 6 of these, okay? So we count 6 flowers. All right, so that'd be 1, back, 2, back, 3, back, 4, back, 5, back, 6. Okay? I'll face this way. Same thing, left bow stance. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I want you to pause right here, because this is where we're going to get into our next move, okay? So like I said, there's 3 components to this. That's the first component. Our second component is much shorter, much easier. I want you to start with that hand, the guard hand near your elbow position, cross the sword. We're going to open up both hands. As this cuts up, we're going to bring our other hand out to the other side, match that same height. So we come up, down, and then we're going to finish with one more cut, okay? But the first things first, we want to just get this timing down. So cross the arm, up and out. Again, up and out, and then start coming up for this last cut. And that's our third component. So this is going to be one more upward cut, but I'm not going to come all the way across my body like I did before. This cut's going to end up at the center, and I'm going to finish with my palm touching my wrist on the sword hand. So we'll just start with the hands out, come up at the center. Now notice the tip of the sword is pointing forward and it's a little bit down. You never want the sword to point up. Level is good, a little bit down is actually better, okay? So again, cut up, and then we want to keep this right in front of the face, pretty much straight out, okay? Now again, bring those hands down, come up. Now we're going to do this at the same time as we lift up our leg and point our knee in the same direction. So start the hands out. We're going to raise up, hands and knee together. Again, start with the sword out, raise. And last time, down, up. Okay, one more time facing this way, down. Notice I touch at the wrist. It all comes up together. This is just like when we do our golden rooster technique. Okay? Now, let's tie the second and third part together. So we're going to start with the hands crossed. Open up, raise up, hand and foot. Again, cross, open, raise, hand and foot. If I face this way, cross, open, raise, hand and foot. Again, cross, open, raise, hand and foot. Okay? Now, let's tie the first to the second and third. Okay? If you remember, we do 6 flowers, and it's every time we go from our right to our left. So once we're done with number 6, it'll come down, we get ready to open, and then we'll raise this leg forward. Now, one of the things you might want to do as we get into this stance is as we do this open, pivot the toes, go out to that 45, and it will make it much easier, a more stable stance when we raise up for that last cut. Okay? So we'll start in our bow stance. Remember, we want to cross, we want to start from our right side of the body. 1, across, 2, across, 3, across, 4, across, 5, across, 6, get the hands ready to open, and then pivot, raise, and hold. Again, we'll do 6, 1, across, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, bring them down, open, pivot, raise. Let's do it again. This time I'll face this side. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, cross, open, raise, and finish the position. Okay, again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, open, pivot, up. All right, so there you have it. You can see how we can piece all of these things together into a single technique, and it shows there's a lot of depth to what's going on when we're practicing our Tai Chi. Now make sure that you isolate the flower, really work through that time. This is a great way to warm up your wrist, your shoulder, your elbow, and as well as doing your single leg balance, you want to make sure that you hold that leg up for a good amount of time, not just a quick up and then back down, because that shows that you have just moving balance, but you don't have that static balance. So take the time as you finish that last cut and hold that leg up to show that you have control of all of that. This technique works timing, it works spatial awareness, it works your mobility, and it's going to develop strength and of course familiarity with the weapon. So there's a lot of good things that can come through just this exercise as a drill, and not even just looking at how you could use each of these as a cutting technique. If you have any questions, drop them down in the comments below. Otherwise, thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.